I think I was born loving music. And when I was 3, my parents got me a record by the Carpenters, which I played. This is an actual record, like on a record player. And I would play it again and again and again and again. And I became very obsessed with the Carpenters. I thought they were the best thing I'd ever heard. And then as I got older, I got into rock music. I joined a rock band. I especially liked the Doors. I liked Led Zeppelin and Jefferson Airplane. And I was very, very extremely into these things when I was into that. And I thought, that's what life is about. It's about rock and roll. And then something very important happened in my 11th grade in high school, which is my best friend, who's still my best friend, who's named Eric Most. Changed my life. He gave me a record by Miles Davis called Kind of Blue. And when I put it on, I know now it's like the stairway to heaven of jazz. It's like everybody knows it, right? But nonetheless, I had never heard this thing before. And when I did hear it, I was completely transformed by this record. I mean, it was a CD this time. And I played this CD again and again and again. And this altered the trajectory of my entire life. Eventually, I repaid the favor to Eric, and now he's a rabbi. So that worked out pretty good. And so I became completely obsessed with jazz. And I think like these other guys, it's interesting to note that we're purists at heart somehow. Like we just want things in the most pure, undistilled form, and we just look for it and get very, very into it as time goes on. And so I spent my college years playing and learning and playing and studying, and eventually I got into the conservatory, which was a big highlight of my life, and I started to go there, and I was practicing 5-6 hours a day. And that even then, that's not even considered so much for some of these people who are like 10, 12 hours. If you think, if I was obsessed, there's an obsession that's even way beyond what I can personally experience. But nonetheless, I was very focused on that. I'd been going, this is my path from 3rd grade basically through graduate school. I'm just thinking about music and really enjoying it and very, very focused on it. I thought that would be my life. And then lo and behold, I find myself in Jerusalem around the time I met Tzvi. And I spent a few months in the old city of Jerusalem. And then I made a call to my parents. This is a classic call for people who have been in this situation where you're like, hi, I've been here for a while. I'm really having a good time. And by the way, I think I'm going to stay here for like the rest of my life. And so my parents are like freaking out and like, how can you do this? You've been focused on your goal, your musical goal for your entire life. I paid for graduate school, what are you talking about, right? And so it was baffling to my friends and family. Here I was, this person who was just really identified as a musician. And I was going this way and I just went whoop, like that. And whereas I had been playing, and I think these guys have stayed much, much, much more involved. And Greg is a professional musician, and Tzvi just made an album. I mean, they're really in it, and I have not been. And so part of me has felt like a certain lack is the truth, but part of me has not. And the question that I hope to answer very briefly is why not? Why I feel like I feel very satisfied in life overall, and even despite the fact that I pretty much abandoned what I was doing before. So anyway, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says that each and every blade of grass has its own song that it sings. I love that imagery. It's like you have a singing field, right? We have this idea nowadays, if you study physics, quantum physics, and I have this new theory now called string theory, which basically says that all the matter in the universe is comprised of these tiny, tiny microscopic strings that are vibrating, and those vibrations give rise to all matter as we know it. And so, although this theory has not been proven, I find it to be very fascinating and very apropos, the idea that the entire universe is just these vibrations, this like song, this sound that's happening everywhere, and that you can tap into it, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, but that the nature of reality is song. And so learning how to sing your own song is extremely important. And when I was studying piano, jazz piano, I desperately wanted to be a player called Chick Corea, who was the fastest and the best person I had ever heard. And I thought, I just have to be him, and I won't be happy in life until I become exactly like him. And slowly I realized that I can't. And the reason that I can't is because I'm not him. And I don't hear like him, and my vibes are not like him. And later I met a man named Rand Blake, who became my teacher, and I realized, oh, I'm really him. I'm really like him. And he's much slower and much more moody and like a totally different feel. But when I connected to him, I was like, oh, now I've really found the voice that I was looking for. And Tzvi mentioned Miles Davis before. This is a classic Miles Davis thing, that when Miles was younger, he really wanted to be Dizzy Gillespie. And if you listen to his recordings, he's just like, he's trying to be Dizzy Gillespie, he's trying to play really fast, he's trying to play really high. And eventually Miles asked him, he's like, why can't I play like you? And Dizzy said, well, you don't hear like me, right? And what you should do is you should play what's in your head and not try to think of what's in mine. And Miles is like, oh, you're right, that's a great idea. And then of course he became the real Miles Davis. That's when Kind of Blue came out, and he became great as a result of being true to himself. So when people ask me, how is it that you spent all this time completely fixated on a musical life, and then you just veered off into this whole spiritual, Talmudic, Kabbalistic exploration? Well, the answer is, it says in Kabbalah that there's 5 spiritual worlds. And at the intersection where the fourth meets the fifth, without going into details, it says that, however you understand this, but it says that Eden, souls, Torah, and music merge, which means that any one of those gates takes you to the other one. So the gate of Torah is related to the gate of music, and the gate of music relates back to the gate of Torah. And so that's why I feel when I study, when I learn, when I contemplate spiritual ideas, I feel the same kind of experience that I did as a musician. And ultimately I believe, and I talk about and write about sometimes, that musicians are just looking for transcendence. They just don't know it. But that's the reason why they do it, and everyone who's tasted it wants it. And that's why I think I was so obsessed with music, because it was the thing I had in my life that took me beyond, as both of these guys mentioned, beyond my boundaries and capabilities into a realm that's really transcendent, that's a higher plane. And so, like Greg said, I recommend that people explore and become fulfilled by music, and just as much, you should give yourself the space to explore spiritual teachings and Kabbalistic teachings and Torah teachings, because you can get the same high, the same pleasure from it. And for me, that's what music is about, and that's what spirituality is about. So with that, I thank everyone for being here. It's really been a great pleasure. And thank you.